Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Insights to Impact BioBuzz event. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Chris Frew. I'm the founder of BioBuzz Networks, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Henry Jackson Foundation for a really interesting, exciting program this afternoon. We do these events. We have 9 of them planned throughout the year, thanks to a good core group of sponsors. But we do them as a purposeful way to really bring the ecosystem together and have conversations and talk about the things that are going to grow the Maryland biopharma innovation ecosystem. It's exciting today. We get to talk about a new addition to that ecosystem, which is a dual-use technology incubator. So before I begin the program, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping for everybody. First and foremost, if you parked in the garage, they validate up front, so make sure you get your validation. Secondly, in case of emergency, there's exits here to the right, and there's also fire exits to follow the exit signs on your way out the door, out that way. This event is being recorded, so just want to make sure everybody knows that. If you're uncomfortable with that, move over to the side over here. But that also means during question and answer sessions, you see microphones in front of you. Those are going to be hot mics. So during Q&A during the panel, you will need to press them on, but also don't forget to press them off, or they will be hot mics, and we'll catch you on camera, or at least on audio. So with that, I want to thank you, thank our sponsors for making this event possible. First and foremost, Henry Jackson Foundation. Let's have a round of applause for Henry Jackson Foundation for hosting us today. I was talking to Troy earlier. I remember just over a year ago or so today, he was here again signing Dr. Carvalho signing an MOU, and just great to see the progress that is made. And again, it's just another thing to celebrate today that shows the progress of partnerships moving forward. So thank you to Henry Jackson Foundation for your sponsorship, along with ABL Ascend, Cartesian Therapeutics, CRB, Fulton Bank, Heffron, Info Pathways, Project Pharma, QIAGEN, TEDCO, and Workforce Genetics. And then today's floating sponsor, who is making today's event possible also, is IBT Bioservices. So if you could give me a round of applause for our sponsors. It's really, again, events aren't, I always tell people in jokingly, events aren't a great business model, but they're great to build community. And if it weren't for these sponsors, we wouldn't be able to do that. So with that, I would like to welcome up Dr. Carvalho, President and CEO of Henry Jackson Foundation, to welcome you all here today and kick off our program.
Well, Chris, thanks for introducing me, and welcome to our attendees. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Chris and BioBuzz, for hosting today's networking event at our very own, what we call Bethesda Auditorium. And on behalf of HJF, I want to welcome you to our conference facility. From my team, I want to thank Stephen Dalal, Katie Bratlie, and Jackie Vandermish, among others, involved in coordinating today's event at this facility here. Now, HJF is a congressionally authorized nonprofit, so we're in federal statute that we have this mission to advance military medicine. And that mission is very precise. But if you think of the soldier, sailor, airman, marine as simply a cohort of humanity, aged 18 to 45, working under austere conditions to defend our country, it's not hard to imagine that if you focus on them, you really are thinking about global health. And that really impacts us deeply, and we're very proud with that mission. We're also proud to be part of the BioBuzz community as we leverage our capabilities to support entrepreneurs with products that can feasibly support both the civilian and military sectors. And we're delighted today to bring together entrepreneurs, investors, and ecosystem leaders this afternoon to hear more about our innovation initiative in general and about the HJF Innovation Laboratory in Montgomery County, Maryland, specifically, and to envision how we can how it will help us advance military medicine. I certainly hope you enjoyed today's panel discussion and follow-on networking event. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. So this time I'd like to invite Katie Bratlie, Director of Innovation Ecosystems at HJF Labs, up to the stage, as well as Troy Lamau-Stovall, CEO of TEDCO, who are going to open the program with a fireside chat talking about this innovation ecosystem, what that is, and dual use as well, amongst, I'm sure, many other things. So welcome.
Good afternoon. Whoa, that's loud too. Good afternoon, everyone. Joe's good seeing you again. You're right. It has been a little over a year that it was LaShawn. Thank you for all your support during getting us started and the connection. So a little over a year ago, I was here and we signed an agreement so that we could begin this process that led us today. We'll talk more about that. But the real point is, how do we take this great stuff that we call innovation and research, and how do we take it from that and then bring it into the commercial space, while also making sure that the military gets used to that. So I'm here with my new friend. So for those that don't know, real quick, I'll introduce TEDCO and then I'll let you introduce yourself. Again, I'm Troy Lamau-Stovall. I serve as the CEO of TEDCO. For those that don't know, TEDCO is the state's venture fund. We do all the early stage technology and life science investments. And those ideas come to us, whether they're in the lab, whether that's a research lab or a university lab or federal lab, someone's garage, someone's back of the napkin, someone's just head. And we're actually pretty good at taking those ideas and bringing them to market. And that's just not me saying that. Entities like PitchBook has deemed us one of the best venture funds on the East Coast and in the country. And so we're very proud of that fact. And so we're writing checks anywhere from, we're writing very small checks as grants, but as investments, we're writing checks from about $100,000 to $200,000 up to $2 million. And I see two of our portfolio companies you'll hear from a little bit later too. I'm very excited to hear from my two portfolio companies. Okay.
Well, thank you. I'm Katie Bratlie, and I've been the director for the innovation ecosystem for about 4 months. So I'm real senior here. So I'm really excited about this. We're building the incubator that's going to be on the 8th floor. It's going to finish construction December 15th, fingers crossed. And we'll be bringing our first cohort of tenants in January. Tomorrow is actually the pitch for the companies. We have a couple of them in the audience right now, but they're going to be presenting tomorrow. And then we will decide whether or not we're lucky enough to have them.
So we'll come back and talk about that incubator, which some of that was provided, some funding from TEDCO, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But let's make sure, I always like to make sure I'm reminded, I'm going to age myself, of the movie Philadelphia, when Denzel's character said, "Talk to me like I'm a second grader." And so some of you are not going to get that, but that's cool. Go check it out. And so let's start with just some definitions. Dual use. What do we mean when we talk about dual use?
Yeah, that's a great question. Dual use for us means that this is something that could be used by military and commercial markets. So for both the military and the civilian population. Specifically, we're trying to go after the warfighter on the military side, because while military medicine can encompass everything, that is, to hold my mic in front of my voice. I'm not used to this. Yeah. So military medicine can affect everybody that's connected to the warfighter, from their family and then to them being a veteran. We're focused more on the warfighter because that's where a lot of innovation is missing and can really be made by these small companies.
Are there some specific examples you can give around that?
So one example is this is an innovation that's in the form of training, and it's called Stop the Bleed, which was developed by military to stop bleeds, traumatic bleeds on the battlefield. And this was translated over in civilian markets to stop bleeding in emergency situations.
Beautiful. So let's talk about this incubator. So for those that don't know, one of the efforts that we have at TEDCO through the support of the governor and the legislator is what we call Equitech. So the Equitech Growth Fund was started several years ago. For the next 7 or 8 years, TEDCO will get $5 million a year to support workforce development and place-based opportunities, or the way because I talk in alliterations, to invest in people and places. It helps me remember things. And so we had an effort last year. Last year we got over 75 applications. We thought we were going to get 30. We got 75 applications representing about $40 million. And just as a side, we just closed this round. We thought we were going to get 50 or 60 applications. We got 95 for this round, representing almost $50 million. We only got 5, so you do the math. So anyway, in the first round, we awarded 14. One of them was to the Henry Jackson Foundation. And what we were looking for a couple of things. We were looking for, obviously, innovation. We were looking for folks that were looking to bring innovation to market. But most important, what we're looking for was partnerships, because this is about ecosystem building and making sure we do that. And so the Henry Jackson Foundation was some of their partners. So I want you to be able to talk about this that's going to open up here. So.
Yeah, so the incubator that's going to open up, it's on the 8th floor. And what we're focused on is things that will fit under that umbrella of military and commercial medicine. And so we're hoping that we're really going to be able to move the needle on military medicine. Traditionally, companies have had a very difficult time being able to advance military medicine by just focusing on the military as a customer. And so our thought process is that we could go in this dual use route where you have 2 markets. So that opens up more avenues to make revenue, which should be attractive to investors, we hope. And then also you'll be able to make a real big impact in both markets, both the civilian and the military.
So what are some of the specific services and areas, the things you're going to be offering to help accelerate? Because the way I talk about it at TEDCO and even with this is we got to be able to touch an entrepreneur in a way to accelerate their growth trajectory. Because I'm just touching them and they're doing the same thing. Who cares? But here in Maryland, we've got to find a way to accelerate. So this is an accelerant of what we're trying to do.
Exactly. So the real estate is one aspect, but you can rent lab space at a lot of different places. The uniqueness of us is that HJF has a lot of deep ties with the military. So we have experts on regulatory, we have experts on acquisition, we have a lot of people who know folks in the government that give grants. So we have a lot of these deep ties that will hopefully increase the success rate of startups, because startups have a success rate that's like less than 10%.
We know.
Yeah. So we want
Our
to.
portfolio projects that, so we know.
Exactly. So we want to improve that. So events and programming are a massive part we're going to be developing. So continue with things like this, events open to the public, but then also events that are tailored to the participants in our incubator.
So one of the challenges, because this is focused on medical technology, life sciences in general, is the long tail that it takes to move these from those beginnings into a commercialization. How is HJF and how is this accelerator going to help in some of that shortness? Some of it you can't do anything about because it's FDA and all that, but how are you going to help? Because again, as an investor, that's a risk profile. If I can see that lowered, then I'm willing to obviously invest more and at a higher rate.
Yeah, that's a great question. So de-risking is the name of the game. And having this network at HJF is going to help these companies de-risk, because they're going to be able to identify what needs to be done in order to get investors to give you that next check. That's what we're really going for.
And what kind of metrics, have you guys decided on what kind of metrics you're going to have to define what's success? Are we still thinking through that part of it?
Well, success for individual companies is going to look different. But success for the incubator is going to mean that we're going to have a lot of graduations. So there's two ways that you can leave an incubator, and we'll just talk about the graduation, stay on the positive. But we're hoping to get companies moving out and on their own after 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
And 2 to 3 years, they're moving to some other space. They're
Exactly.
moving on their own. Is there going to be some kind of alumni or connective tissue to kind of track them and make sure that, again, using the language we use at TEDCO, that I want to know long-term, longitudinally, if that's a word, that what we did had an impact on them?
Oh, absolutely. We're not, once you graduate, you're not getting kicked out of the family. You're going to stay in our network. There's a lot of people at HJF right now that they were employees, they left, and then they came back because HJF is a great place to be at. And we're hoping to extend that to the incubator so that we give companies a good foothold to go out into the world and be successful, and then they want to pay that back.
Outstanding. Is there going to be a capacity in terms of the number of companies that you'll be incubating any one time?
There will be, it depends on the needs of the space of the companies, obviously. So some companies have a bigger footprint that they need, and some have smaller footprints. And then there's also the growth potential. So it's a real advantage of our incubators that we have the potential to move from single benches to much larger labs.
Talk a little bit about the lab space that you're going to have available in this space.
So we have flexible lab space, BSL2 or biosafety level 2. We'll have chemical fume hoods, obviously. And then we have individual labs that the companies can occupy. And we also have benches that can be rented out. And so the exact equipment that we're going to get is to be determined. We have the companies pitching tomorrow, and once we figure out which companies are going to sign on, then we're going to figure out what equipment would make most sense.
So what's going to be kind of the criteria? How are you going to decide who gets in? I know you have the event tomorrow, but how is it going to be decided how you can become part of the incubator?
Yeah, that's a good question, because this is going to be a rolling process. So we have the event tomorrow, but we're also planning on having another meeting in April. And so we'll open up the application cycle probably early 2026. But being able to get into the incubator, the first and most important criteria is that there has to be a dual use. There has to be a military application.
They have to have thought about that part.
Yes.
They have to see both military and the commercial. They have to come to you with that.
Exactly. Yep. So that's the most important thing. And then we also evaluate the same things that I'm sure that you evaluate. So team, market, and technology.
Well, I call it the 4 Ps, and I won't, but it's at this stage, I learned this a long time ago, my friends in Silicon Valley, at this stage, it's less about the idea and more about the person.
Yep.
And it's more about who, and my friends over here can tell you, I say this all the time, it's more about their coachability. Because all due respect to them, their ideas that came to us is just an okay idea. And I tell entrepreneurs this all the time, I want you to be passionate about your idea, but I don't want you to love it. Because if you love it, you won't be willing to take the coaching that it takes. But I want you to be passionate about it. So you got to understand the difference between those things. The second P is a product. Somebody got to be asking for it. And you'd be surprised how many people you'll go out and come up with some cool idea, Katie, and go talk to your 10 of your friends. And all 10 of your friends say, girl, that's a bomb. You come to me and I say, them the only 10 people going to buy that thing. But if you want 10 million people to look at it, This is what you got to do. That's why you got to decide between love and passion.
Yep.
Then the third P is profit. And most entrepreneurs get this wrong all the time. They price wrong. They flat out price wrong. They end up pricing to cost and not to value. And I got a whole speech around that. I can talk about that later. But you price wrong. The simple example that I give is, again, back to another example here. You got a fork. Your fork is off the chain. It's off the chain. And you charge $100, and you own the market. And your fork, you charge $100 for your fork. Thing. Now, LaShawn over here, she got a fork just like yours. And she can manufacture her fork for $5. What should LaShawn charge for her fork? Most people get this answer wrong. They say $25, $30. Wrong answer. There's only 2 answers. One is $100. The other is $99.95 and throwing some Ginsu knives. Because she starts gaining market share, what are you going to do? Lower prices. You have no ability to lower your price. The fourth P is a plan. Most entrepreneurs don't really have, because they're too passionate about the deal, they don't know what to take it to market, to go to market. So yes, those are the 4 Ps that we have to look for. So as we close, because I want to open up the floor here, but I think, I know I'm contractually obligated to say the 2 words that I actually hate to say, but I'm going to say them. Artificial intelligence, which I think is a silly word, but that's a separate point. So how is, I'll call it data analytical tools or AI going to impact how you're thinking about how the incubator models and works and is used, and how it's going to play into what these companies do with the incubator? Have you guys thought about the role of AI?
That's a great question. I have not thought a whole lot about AI, but I think that there's a lot of room for designing new, for instance, pharmaceuticals based on AI. So I think that there's a lot of ability to use AI in this field.
No, I think that's right. I know that's right. And as one of my friends told me, if you marry up AI with whatever version of quantum will eventually show up, they'll be designing vaccines before you have a disease for the vaccine, which, is an interesting thought. Not sure how I understand that, but I guess it makes sense to somebody. So with the time we have left, I want to make sure we open the floor up to questions to myself or Katie. And remember what we said about the hot mic. So don't say nothing you don't want recorded.
I have a question. It was a very impressive presentation from both of you. You asked the question about artificial intelligence, and I think that's a great question. I was at the Brookhaven sponsored AI.
Just a little bit closer.
I was at the Brookhaven National Laboratory sponsored conference in Manhattan 2 weeks ago. It was on AI and health, and it was fascinating. So my question is, will this incubator, do you have interest in dealing with people like us at Regenica, that we believe by using multidimensional digital twins and multiomics that we can reduce the time and cost of drug development by 20 to 40%?
As long as it has a application to military medicine, it's something that we would consider.
Ron from the VA is actually on our advisory board.
Wonderful.
I do see a role of artificial intelligence, digital analytical tools to helping and we've talked to some companies that are looking to help do some of this to replace animal testing, to better job of modeling so that you don't have to use as much animal testing or even to decrease the use of animals. So I can see that, and I actually get that to your point of using digital twins to do that. So there's a lot. I joke about artificial intelligence. I get the role of it. I think sometimes we overstate what it can and cannot do. That's my only point. But I absolutely do think in this example you give is absolutely critical.
Getting rid of animal studies is also one of our big priorities. And the other thing is getting the FDA to listen to us by using virtual clinical trials. And I've got discussions ongoing now with the Office of the Commissioner to really look into that more deeply.
Yeah, so the entity that actually we signed the MOU with Henry Jackson Foundation is called the Maryland Innovation Initiative. Many of you know about our MII effort, and they're working with the FDA in the whole modernization. So we're sitting at the table with the FDA how to do modernization. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, Jeff Hausfeld, Chairman at Biofactura and Capital Biologics. So traditionally, when you had an asset that was for dual use, in funding, the private sector relied on the government to fund the project until its completion. How are you going to direct this new cohort in this environment with this, difficult funding environment, both from the government and in the private sector?
Yeah, that's a timely question. I think that you have to just continue pursuing the funding possibilities that have traditionally been there. Venture capital is starting to show some signs of warming up, especially with IPOs are starting to come out a little bit more. But the SBIR funding is I think unknown at this point would be the most accurate way of saying that. Yeah, I mean, it could really go either way as far as SBIRs. There's some proposals to increase the amount of spending, but if agencies aren't given more money, that's not going to help. So I used to be a program director for NSF in the SBIR program. So one of my hopes is that I'm going to be able to help people be in a more competitive position. But it's a tough time for startups right now.
And what about funding directly from JPEO and other, defense related? And
Yeah, we're definitely going to try to get into all of those different avenues. We're going to try.
So I know you're trying to get, your question reminded me of a footfall that I did in my intro, but to answer your question, the footfall was to remind the group that may not know that TEDCO's Expo is October 21st. It'll be over at the college, the hotel at College Park. And the reason I bring it up is because we will have a number of gathering of venture capitalists and other funding entities. We actually already know that our booth, our exhibit space is oversold. We only have 105 spaces, but we got 110 exhibitors. Y'all do the math, you'll know what that means. And we've actually confirmed today the governor will be there, the controller will be there. We're also, we're going to be announcing to funding, we're going to be making some big announcements from Jordan, South Korea, and Taiwan about some investments that are coming, particularly around life sciences that are coming to the state. But directly to your question, two parts. One, as we look at some of our dual use companies that have that potential, particularly as the federal contracts are, starting to lay out, we're pushing them to think differently about that retail, that consumer part. The challenge, though, a small company normally doesn't have the level of resources it needs, because that's a whole different animal to go after those types. For instance, we have a couple of companies and they literally are two separate companies because the talent needed to go after, in this case, a consumer market is foundationally different than going after the military side of it. And so that puts tremendous strain on them. And so we're having to think about, from a financing point of view, how to finance just that consumer side so they have the resources, and then get the contracts that keep the military side going as long as you can. Now, look, we're going to see what's going to happen with the world for the next 24 hours. We'll see if we're still alive in the next 24 hours or whatever's going to happen in the next 24 hours. But this is a volatile situation. I don't think there's an answer to your question. I think this is a situation where we really do need the sequence. That's why I brought up the expo. This is a time, folks, that we truly have to become one Maryland. We truly have to see ourselves not competing, but complementing one another and showing each other the resources that we all are going to need. Because this is just times that we don't understand. I'm not trying to make a political statement, but this is the time for us to come together as one state, regardless of your persuasion. We've got to see that this is about how do we accelerate these entrepreneurs' journeys. That's what the only question we should be asking ourselves. Yes, sir.
So in the spirit of transcending some of these, I don't want to say boundaries, but some of these silos that have limited us in the past, bottlenecks, so to speak, what is your appetite from broadening from public-private partnerships into public-private academic military partnerships, and taking advantage of some of the examples that we've seen from MEII, for example, that took, I think they 35x'd the investment they were given. Where do you see USM, UMD? Is there an appetite for gamification, hackathons, some of the things that we know Gen Z likes to create equitable opportunities while they're still in school, so we can get some of these cost matching and answer your question is keeping this in Maryland with the money that we have now?
Well, we do some of that now. TEDCO, through this Maryland Innovation Initiative, we do a lot of that work now. So I don't think the question of, I think we can do more. We can scale it up more. And so I don't disagree. We can scale up more. I think it's there. But, let's be honest, the Hopkins, the UMD of the world are about to be under some significant pressures on their own. As an example, MII, I don't have my numbers right, so someone's better numbers, I could be wrong. But I want to say MI applications went up almost 50%. Stem Cell, which is another effort that we have, Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund, their application was over almost 80%. And so there's a tremendous rush to come to alternative funding sources. And we're limited. I mean, MRI is $5 million. They write a $300,000 check. Stem cell is, it just got cut. They were 20, they're now $15 million. And so we're doing all that we can. We just got the SBR. We are matching SBR. We just got those funds. I just signed 3 today for $25,000. So I'm not saying that's wrong, but $25,000 is not going to last long. $75,000 is not going to last long, particularly in life science. You guys know that better than I do. So again, to your point, we've got to become more collective. And so, because I talk in alliterations and I'm going to close out, look, I talk a lot about, people have heard me say, we got to do a better job of scaling what we got. And you scale by stitching. And when you stitch and you scale, you scale. And when you scale better, you stitch better. When you stitch better, you scale better. I'm an old computer scientist. You get yourself to a nice little do loop. And when you scale and you stitch really great, you know what you do? You do what we're doing today. And my friend over here does it well. You storytell. And when you storytell really well with data, guess what you do? You get access to more resources to do what? To scale better and to stitch better. And you get into that another do loop. But there's 4 S's. If you scale better, you stitch better, you storytell better, what we really are trying to do is what we talked about, is we create a higher level of stickiness for companies that are started and stay here in Maryland. That's the point that we're here today. How do we create a higher level of stickiness with the right level of resources when we scale and we stitch and we storytell? So thank you, Katie. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Have a great one.